Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. It's so exciting to have such a passionate group of customer service, operations, and workforce management leaders joining the webinar today. There's been so much sharing on social media and with our peers, so thank you for helping us build this community. And the question we're starting with is, which factors have the biggest impact on agent success? Is it the onboarding process, training, knowledge management, quality assurance? There are so many factors that can impact an agent's ability to deliver an amazing customer experience. And as such, CS, CX leaders must be armed with the strategies to overcome common challenges and supercharge their agents to excel. This topic will be a key discussion at the 9th Annual Customer Service Summit in New York on October 23rd and 4th. This is an audio-only webinar, so check your webinar chat box for a link to more information in just a moment. To set the scene for the webinar and start the discussion, we're opening a question to the audience via a poll. You'll see this pop up on your screen now. While you're answering this, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Hillary Curran, Director of Customer Experience at Guru. Diane Haluska, Director of Customer Service at PVH. Mary McCarthy, Customer Experience Director at Microsoft. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Diane Majors, a good friend of the Insight Group and former CEO of CXPA, our moderator for today's webinar. Diane, I'd like to pass it over to you now.
Thanks so much, Jasmine, and welcome everyone. We're in for a great 45 minutes of content. I just want to open it up to our panelists at the very beginning here as we let the poll kind of fill in with these three topics that are really important and critical for care agents, as Jasmine talked about. There's a lot of empowerment that needs to happen, and we're trying to enable the workforce with all of this great information. So I want to start with the panelists and ask them to share the most important outcome or goal for empowering the workforce. So great bringing all these things together and giving them as much information as possible are great overarching goals. But what are some of those key goals for you as an organization? Hillary, can you start with some of the ways you're measuring how to achieve the goal?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I kind of want to answer this question in a little bit of a different way. So one of the things that I think we try to do really strategically and thoughtfully at Guru is to make our customers' goals also our team goals. And so our product actually supports all three of these topics: artificial intelligence, knowledge management, and providing customer insights. And so we make sure that our customer service and support and success team are actually measured on the goals of their customers. So there's a phrase that we say where customers are almost like coworkers for our team. So some of the metrics which Jasmine mentioned earlier on, such as onboarding time, we work with a lot of support and sales teams. So we try to allow them to choose a metric that they want to adhere to and want to track over time using our product or service. And then our team will use that as a metric for their own success. So if we can help our customer get to the metric or outcome that they're wanting to achieve, like we feel like in turn we've done them, and we've done the service that we want to do, and we provided them with the best kind of customer success. So some of those metrics could be for, let's say, if it's a support team, it could be onboarding time, how long it takes for people to ramp up. It could be the time to first response if they want to make that decrease. Maybe it's taking them a long time. Maybe their NPS score or the number of their customer retention. So there's lots of different metrics that we work with our customers, but we try to use our customers' metrics to in turn inform our own success.
That's an awesome way to start with saying we're really going to be customer-centric and customer-driven. What are they trying to achieve? What's on their scorecard? I love that. Mary, talk a little bit about the goals for your culture. I think you have kind of a unique approach when it comes to thinking about what you're trying to accomplish.
Thanks, Diana, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So for me, it's about actually using AI, knowledge management, customer insights, but in conjunction with the framework for cultural change that we've been developing at Microsoft. So we have a customer experience framework which focuses on a number of different areas for our customers and for our advocates. But ultimately, we want to be able to create fans of our customers, and that's the outcome we're going after through the cultural change.
Wonderful. Diane, what are you trying to achieve, and how do you measure the impact?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So what I'm really attempting to achieve, because customer service, you have your standard metrics, you have your customers that you support, you have your business owners that you report to. But what's really important to me for empowering the workforce is making them truly understand the impact that they have. So by gathering the feedback from them, since they're the ones on those front lines getting that unsolicited feedback to our customers, it's taking that, creating our business cases for us to be able to go ahead and enhance our technologies to even get AI to make their day easier and better. In addition to that, all of the feedback that we would receive for them really enhances our knowledge management, and it enhances the consumer insights that we provide back to our brand partners, because we can run reports and we can measure customer satisfaction, our average handle time, our average speed of answer, all day, every day. But what really makes that change is the comments and unsolicited feedback that we provide back to them. So one of the biggest goals and outcomes for empowering that workforce is showing them that their voice matters, right? And then by taking that feedback and making a change, going up to an agent and being like, hey, listen, go to the website. You had a direct handle of making that change. You had a direct handle in this policy update, and you had a direct handle of making the consumer experience better. It blows them out of the water every time. And then we take that skill and we allow them to enhance things such as their LinkedIn or their resume, or providing them then additional tasks, so they feel as though they're not that lower level entry associate that everybody puts them in that category. So they're making sure their voice is heard is the ultimate goal that I have for this team.
That's wonderful. It's great about that employee experience and making them feel valued and part of the solution, and that their contributions matter, right? It's one thing to talk to customers a lot, but how can they have an impact and give some of their great ideas? I always say that they're the wealth of information. They really know what's happening and with the pulse of the customer. Great to hear. Thank you, ladies, for that. This topic, though, can be very overwhelming. And I think a lot of times about how all this information has to come together, and it's really a partnership with IT and structuring and customer intelligence and all the things that need to come in together. So can you share a framework or how you approached aligning all of this information? Like we know that in not too long ago, there's lots of applications that care center reps had to open, and their swivel chair was there. How does this information come together differently for you? What's your goal to bring it together, and how do you leverage each important piece of this? So Mary, we'll start with you as you kind of talked about how that measurement comes to be. How do you get your arms wrapped around this topic?
So I mentioned the customer experience framework there earlier, Diane, and at Microsoft our mission is to empower every person in an organization on the planet to achieve more, and that includes our internal workforce and the thousands of frontline advocates that support our customers every day. So as part of our cultural transformation, our focus is kind of moving from being a know-it-all organization to be a learn-it-all organization, and the whole piece around using AI and knowledge management to learn more is an incredible opportunity. And being in the organization at this time, I've been at Microsoft for a very long time, but now I find it incredibly motivating to have the opportunity to learn and grow our teams and advocates every day. With the incredible technology that we have huge opportunity, and we're encouraged to innovate. So look at ways to bring our data insights and our learning and customer insights together to see how we can get information to the customers straight away so they don't actually need to come to us. But in CSS, so in the customer service and support organization, we've been driving this cultural change called the customer experience framework, which puts the customer at the center of everything we do. And there are 4 areas that go with that. One is called Empower Me, so empower the customer to be able to self-serve and be able to find answers either in product, in-app, or in-app, and our technology allows us to do that very effectively. The second then is help me quickly when I need help. So if there is a need for assisted support, to make it easy for a customer to come through to us, but then also have all of the right resources available to our advocates so that they can answer our customers and create fans of them. The third area then is advise me how I can achieve more. So this is giving our advocates opportunity to really create fans of customers by telling them more about the products and services that are available or what the functionality is so that the customer can achieve more. And then the fourth area is around enabling our Microsoft team so that we can all learn and grow as we develop these opportunities for our customers. And the way that this model has been crafted or created is based on a quality framework, which is called the Customer Sentiment Driven Quality Framework, CSDQ. And that was based on some pilot work that we did, which essentially was able to show us that by focusing on 4 key attributes, we can drive improvements in customer sentiment. And with the pilot group, we were able to increase customer sentiment by 6.5%. The model is conveniently called CARE, in that it's easy to remember, but it pulls together ways of communicating effectively, which is a C, accountability, resourcefulness, and empathy. And in training our internal teams and our advocates on those 4 key attributes, we're effectively driving change in the customer experience. And then we're able to use machine learning to assess where the customer sentiment is either breaking down or really doing well, so that we can coach our advocates to provide better service and learn from the experiences that maybe didn't go so well. So that's kind of the framework that we're using, Diane.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So Diane and Hillary, I'll pose to you a little bit. It's often this kind of magic sauce, I think, sometimes to think about how this information comes together, how you work with the data and analytics teams to bring that together. Can you talk a little bit about that internal framework and the way that you brought those things to bear and how you worked with those other parts of the organization to make that happen? Diane, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're correct. This topic is overwhelming, and it is absolutely okay if you are in your field and you have not identified a framework yet. It's really important to participate in things such as conferences and or communicating with your peers, being a part of these webinars, so you can hear what others have to say and determine how you can use that for your team and bring it back there. So I just wanted to make a point of saying, it is overwhelming, but we're all here in the same community to help. And I also think it's important to note, especially when it even comes to us, we go ahead and we emphasize on the things that we're not good with. So when we communicate with IT, when we communicate with our brand partners, when we communicate with our operations team to gather reporting and data to share, we always call out the fact through our communication that we're relying on antiquated systems and reporting to go ahead and provide them the insight that they rely on to enhance consumer experiences or identify issues with IT. And because we speak up about our inefficiencies and our technologies, and we always discuss, well, we could be better if we had X, it really led to a huge change where we're doing 3 major technology enhancements this year that are going to help us gain self-service, AI and chatbot, contact deflection, robust reporting, and overall better deliverables that tie it all back together to the importance that customer service plays within an organization. So our framework for that has always been I remember the first year that we went live, because we used to be outsourced and we brought it internal. So the goal was get through the first year and develop those relationships that we need. Then the second year was structure the department for growth. And then after we did that, we really went ahead and moved forward with our communication and how we rely on our technologies to deliver better results. And having that open feedback and framework with those different departments led us to some of our goals where we are going to be so efficient moving forward. And I couldn't be happier.
That's wonderful. Really, really great to hear. Hillary, do you want to share a little bit about how this part of how did you tackle the overwhelming approach to some of this information?
Of course. So I would think that, thinking about how our customer experience and success and support teams sort of integrate across the entire company at Guru, and also make sure that, we're covering all the bases of all the different things that are going on internally. There's really three ways that we do this. One, I think, is just a top-down sort of embodiment of this culture of sharing knowledge, and whether that's because of the way that our team is set up, all of our information across all the different departments at Guru is accessible by anyone in our company. And so if you're on the support team and you have a question that may be a little more technical, it's much easier for you to find that information because you have access to everyone's information and everyone's knowledge base, versus having to, go find someone who's an expert. And if you can't find that information, there's a really good way to ask for it within the Guru product. We also rely heavily on Slack to create a really open culture of sharing and giving feedback. We have a channel for product questions that anyone anyone across the entire company can post questions that they hear from prospects or from customers, and it's super active. We also have a feedback channel, and then another channel that I think is really cool to sort of share specifically customer service wins is we have a channel called CS Wins. And so every time a customer has launched with our product, or there's been something that's been positive that's happened from a customer service standpoint, the entire team will post in that Slack channel and just talk about the outcomes that came to the customer, provide a little bit of a story, and then also just share, a quote from the customer. And so that is a really great way to connect the engineers to kind of the stuff that they're working on, and to see, oh, wow, like this actually changed someone's day. There was an impact in this one small tweak that I made to the design. The second thing, besides having that culture of sharing knowledge, is the structure of our team and how we sort of organize ourselves. And so recently at Guru, we've developed a pod structure for the development of new features and new releases to our product. And within those pods, we have a representative from every different department. So it's a really cool structure in that someone who is an entry level or maybe a year or two at Guru on customer success or customer service or support is joined into one of these pods to work on a very specific feature. So they're providing, direct feedback that the customer has given them, whether that's through our ticketing system or on the call that they've had with the customer. They can provide real-time feedback to all of the designs that are being created, and, serve as a customer voice right from the get-go in these pods, whether the pod's, building a brand new knowledge structure thing, or they're building just a really small change to how something like our login page, right, could be really small, but they're having a really great direct impact, and they develop a team of allies across all the rest of Guru. And then the third thing I think is just making sure that everyone feels empowered, right, which is what this whole webinar is about. But I think having that culture to sort of instill that empowerment, and then also having a structure set in place that people do feel that they have the ability to share their voice, kind of in the end, makes the entire team empowered.
And that's a pretty common theme already of how everyone's voice is being heard. This is often about getting information to them, but the way that you're using it, and you're bringing also not only the reps information, but also across the organization. That's really thrilling, because I think that really makes it more of an engagement rather than it's information out to them. They're contributing to it. They're enriching it both in person with your pod concept, but also within the system itself. So very, very interesting. It's such a great stage, and I like for when we think about this webinar, we were talking about it on the phone earlier to prepare. We were talking about giving people a how-to. So can each of you give just an example of one small thing you did to kind of move the ball forward, either when you were getting started or when you kind of got the basics in place? What were some other core examples of that? So Diane, I'll start with you to share a small step where people could say, I can go do that tomorrow as I'm getting started.
Yeah, sure. I would think that, so because I think about it, because we brought it in 3 years ago, and I'm like, what is one of the examples that I did when we first started in order for us to go ahead and do it? I would have to say just assess, right? If you don't fully understand what you have and where you're attempting to go, creating plans are very critical to me. And of course, things can always get better, but assessing something that you have, whether it's in staffing, whether it's in training, reporting, or systems and technology, do a real robust review of what you have now so you can plan out your better roadmap for the future.
Wonderful, wonderful example. Hillary, how about you?
Oh, I have so many examples. One that I think jumps out at me as far as, just something that's really easy to put in place today is, I mentioned Slack earlier, but using any sort of format that's within your current user's workflow to allow them to really easily provide feedback that either they're hearing from the customer or, if they're using the product or service themselves, that something that they've noticed. And so we use a combination of our own product guru. We also use there's a software called Product Board, which has an extension as well that you can quickly, add information about a feature or something that you think should be improved. And then our product team can take all of those insights that are, gathered across the entire team and then sort them and organize them pretty simply. And then whenever we do, if we do implement any changes to the product or to our service that someone has at one point requested, we have a really great log of all that. And we can actually follow up with the customer, whether it's through a mass email to everyone who's asked for it, or even just a one-off, message and saying hey, we know it's been a while, but you asked us for this one thing and we actually delivered on it. And it's just amazing how many people respond and are really excited that we actually responded and told them that we did what they asked. So, just having a really easy place that's in the workflow, whether it's an email address that people can quickly email. But I think if you make it where they have to log in and find some specific place to actually go log the feedback, it's harder to capture it in the moment. And so making it in the workflow is really important.
That was wonderful. Thank you for that. Mary, how about you? Anything you want to share? One small step.
Yeah, so I would have gone with what Hillary just shared with us. So we have a system called Speak Up, which allows us to get that closed feedback loop. But on top of that, I think rewards and recognition programs for catching people doing it right. So we have a customer hero program which is linked to our care attributes, and advocates receive badges when they do a good job, and it really showcases and generates excitement and motivation for trying to do the right thing by the customer. And I love to see people being rewarded and wowing customers.
And helping them understand there's an end game for them and recognizing when they do use all this generous information and they're really making connections with those customers. That's wonderful. I'm going to flip it a little bit on its head. So it all sounds great and easy on the outside. It's like the duck on water, right? We see the duck on water, but underneath there's a lot going on. What would you, I'm going to ask you a question about kind of change management and obstacles and barriers you find in your way, because I think there's nothing more better than a lesson learned. What would you like your organization to do differently? So what are some of the obstacles and how did you overcome them? If you think about how you would want the organization to act and think differently, what's still on your docket to say, I want to solve this problem in 2020? Mary, can you start for us?
So certainly, I think the area that I would like us to focus more on is around simplification. So we have a lot of products, and we work in a multicultural global environment where things can get lost in translation. And one of the things that we're using in our knowledge management and content now is the Fleischkind index to simplify language so that it can be easily understood, and then machine translation can work more effectively. We're also looking at kind of closed caption on meetings so that they are more inclusive. So really the simplification piece is something that I think we need to continue to focus on.
That's great. Hillary, how about you? What do you want the organization to do differently? What's the obstacle you're overcoming?
So we've grown pretty quickly since I've been here. I think when I started, we were around 30 employees, and now we're at 130. And so I think, for any sort of smaller startup or business that's growing rapidly, regardless of size, there's a lot of scaling challenges that are always fun to figure out as you go. And I think two of the ones that pop out, one is kind of around, when I first started at Guru, we did a ton of very one-to-one interactions with customers, which are super important, specifically when you're trying to build a really great customer service and experience. And so now that we're getting bigger, trying to be creative and strategic about how we're going to serve our customer base that's growing with a very, thoughtful and human touch, but do it in a way that's a little more scalable. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is develop, more self-service learnings, develop places for people to come and ask questions in a webinar format, making it a little bit of a step up the ladder, so to speak. And then I think from an internal perspective, one of the challenges that, any size company has around knowledge management is just keeping things up to date. And so what we've done as we've grown at Guru is developed a governance council, which is a designated person on each department or each, subject matter expert area to sort of manage and take responsibility for a group of information. And they're designated to, meet regularly with this council to make sure that the rest of the content in our entire knowledge base is up to date. And it's a pretty sort of high sought after responsibility because the rest of your team is engaging with this knowledge. And so if it's, not accurate, you're going to be providing a poor experience to your customers and potentially like an incorrect one. And so making sure that there's a group of people who, are responsible for different groups of information and making sure that it's pretty strict and structured has helped us as we've grown.
Awesome, awesome answer. That whole point of knowledge management is to make sure it stays relative and vibrant and useful to the organization as well. So I love that approach. So we'll think about we've talked about your goals, we've talked about some things that you're doing, we've talked about overcoming some obstacles. What's on the roadmap for 2020? So one of the challenges is having a plan and a strategy because we're all busy doing things every day to make things work, but stepping back and saying, what do I really need to be thinking about? So in the spirit of that, can you all share a little bit about your roadmap for 2020 and why you're focusing there? Mary, can you start for us?
So we have lots of fun stuff on the roadmap, but we're really focusing on building on and reinforcing the customer experience framework. So taking those the notion of empower me, help me, and advise me, and ensuring that our advocates have the knowledge and resources that they need to drive better outcomes for our customers. Personally, I'm looking at developing our onboarding processes so we can reduce the time to competency, and really focused on developing people and making it more fun to learn. So some of the work we're doing in the learning space is using Flipgrid, a social video platform, to engage with advocates while they're in the classroom. And then really looking at building celebration opportunities, catching people doing it right, as I mentioned with the badges earlier, and aligning to our mission to empower every person on the planet to achieve more, and seeing that and making it real for the advocates who look after our customers so well.
Perfect. Hillary, share
Awesome.
what's on your
horizon. Yeah, it's a very exciting time at Guru. I would say from a product standpoint, as our product has matured, our next venture is really about managing, optimizing, and scaling with our customers' use of our product. And so there's a lot of features and integrations coming out that allow teams to grow alongside our own product. from a customer service, in more of an internal facing response, I would say, similar to Mary, from a sort of a product-led growth standpoint, we're working on building out a lot of more self-service onboarding materials inside our product, developing a team that can, build on our education of how to use all of our stuff that all the resources and things that we provide and our amazing marketing team creates, whether it's videos or playbooks, things like that, and building on that initiative, and then creating that advocate community of customers, whether that's through events that we host. We have a conference that we've done every year called Empower, and so doing things that bring people together to share resources and share knowledge and share experiences is sort of our next venture for 2020.
Great. So I love that. It's one thing to have the information in place, and once you get it there, how do you get the employees engaged with it? How do you get them to see this overwhelming amount of information for them and where they can go and what it's going to do to enable them? That's a really important point. That's one thing to take away for the audience that is critical. So thanks for sharing that, Hillary, as well as you talked a little bit about that whole customer and keeping that voice and that engagement and that one-on-one conversation with them rather than just listening to them. How do you engage in that conversation? Diane, do you want to share what you're thinking about for the next year, which is coming up very quickly, by the way?
Absolutely. We have so many great things in store that we started in 2019 that are going into 2020 because of that communication. So we are investing in a new contact management system that is going to give us AI chatbot, like as I was saying before, self-service contact deflection, overall better deliverables, and an enhanced technology suite. It's also going to be bringing in numerous systems to one platform that will then improve the associates' day to make them more efficient to handle communications with our consumers. We're also going to be rolling out social customer service. We are bringing in a new telephony suite that really caters to the needs here, that allows more robust IVR options for self-service for consumers. And I think most importantly, and a big thing that should be on people's minds, is the California Consumer Privacy Act that goes into effect on January 1st, 2020, where consumers are allowed to submit access and or deletion requests for their data. And it's a big push for us this year to prepare for it in 2020 and continue to improve upon that structure because it's going to have a big impact. So tons of fun projects and changes.
That's a lot. You all are tackling a lot of things, but I love that you've got this very distinct and focused view. This is why you guys are where you're at. So fantastic. One thing I want to share, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour, so we've got a few minutes, and we want to leave some time for questions from the audience. I always love to ask this question to those of you who have been in the trenches and have the scars on your back a little bit of building this and have that look forward. What would you say to your younger self? What's the one thing you'd say to somebody who's, a couple years behind, who's just coming in to tackle this? What would you share with them that could make the difference? A lesson learned, if you will. Diane, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think I have two comments to this, and it's important to know that, we're in the industry of helping others. So what I would say to someone is that at first, you're a people person. In order to be in this industry, you need to be a people person. So the second you put people first, whether it's the consumer or the associate, others around you, to make an overall better experience for them, then you're going to go far. You need to keep that trait in the forefront of your mind in everything that you do, and don't get wrapped up in the little things at times. And then with that said, it's always that the people are changing. The consumer trends, technology trends, everything's changing. So make sure you take yourself out of the day-to-day with what's happening in your organization and invest time into networking with those in your community. As I said before, conferences, attending webinars, reading articles, and just putting yourself out there. You will gain a plethora of information that'll help you diagnose a problem that you might have, because you're getting it from somewhere else. So just because your organization hasn't seen it, I guarantee someone else has. So don't be afraid to get advice.
You've always got to have someone in that navigator seat with you. You're not on an island, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. Is that what I heard? Fantastic. Mary, do you want to share with us one thing you would tell your younger self?
Sure, and I'd like to choose two because they're two that are very important to me. And the first is keep it simple and listen to your customers, teams, and stakeholders. The dream team environment is where everyone is on the journey together. And the second is more personal. It's believe in the value you bring and always look to learn.
Those are very succinct and very important. Hillary, last from you. Advice you'd give to somebody.
I have two. So I would say the first one, which I think everyone here would agree with, but I think sometimes for startups and for companies as they're growing, it's harder to realize the value of customer service early on in early days. And so something that's been sort of baked into the DNA of Guru is investing in customer success and customer service even before sales, because if you can keep a customer, it shows a lot more about the value that you're providing than just acquiring more new ones over time and having a ton of churn. And so taking the time to invest in your customer service and customer success team is really, really important, even though it may not seem like that when you're a small company. And then the second thing I would say is just don't be afraid to experiment. Even at a much larger company, I think. Or even at a small one, I think sometimes it's hard to invoke change without feeling like it's going to, step on someone's toes or cause a bunch of chaos because of change management. But we started to just try to encourage this mentality of experimentation, and I think it's been really successful at Guru. From a knowledge management standpoint, we constantly are having hackathons for our engineering and the rest of our team to submit ideas around different things that they may want to improve about how we manage our knowledge. And then from an AI standpoint, we have a lot of features that do serve our customers using AI. And I think we were really hesitant early on to put it out into the world until it was perfect, but it has to learn. And so I think we've learned our lesson in that, just giving people access to it and allowing it to learn. It's artificial intelligence, but you can't just start from the very top. It has to take time. And so, allowing customers to have access to some of those features earlier on has been really helpful. And then the third one around customer insights, I would say is, experiment with different ways to gather information. We recently started an early access program for some of our customers that allows them to get previews of some of our new features. And it could just be a screenshot. It doesn't have to be access, just to give a little bit more information to our design and development team. And that has been really successful in just giving that really quick last minute feedback without having to, develop this really, specific MVP. So experiment and, invest in your support and success team.
Yeah, I always say fail fast, fail forward, fail but succeed with how you can identify what you're going to get out of a new idea, so that you can grow that and nurture the ones that are really great. So good approach. So we're going to switch over to a little bit. Thank you, ladies, so much for all that information. Very, very rich. We want to switch over just real quickly. We've only got a few minutes left, but switch over to some questions that we have coming in. I'll read you one from Katie. Her question, and we'll see who wants to tackle this one, but it sounds like we all have had this challenge. She says, how do you combat information silos among your teams for the natives who have been around a while versus new employees coming in? So who would like to tackle this?
I can try. This is Hillary.
Thank you. Hey, Hillary, thanks.
This is a question near and dear to my heart, Katie, so thank you for asking it. So silos are awful. I've felt your pain before at various organizations that I've worked at. And so I think it's hard, when you have like an old guard and a new guard, or, people who are more old school as far as how they're, sharing information. I think it's important to set really strict rules. And I think if you have executive buy-in from the top down at your organization to make sure that those people who are, potentially creating these undernets or silos of information really understand like the negative impact that that's having. And allowing your team, one of the things that's really great about Guru is that we can actually see what knowledge people are accessing. We have data around it. So if you have any sort of data around what people are using when they're engaging with customers or engaging with prospects, it can also help you kind of guard or guide your ship into the right direction, so that you can say, listen, instead of having these 3 silos of information, when it's all in this one place, you can see that the rest of the team is using this information. And so we want to make sure that they're not using it incorrectly, or not necessarily, having access to the information that they need information to pull from. So having data around what people are using when they're talking to customers, what parts of your knowledge management system are they actually engaging with, is really helpful. And then, just having that buy-in from the top down as far as kind of the cultural approach to sharing information internally.
Well, that's wonderful. I know we all combat those silos, and it's helping people to understand the upstream and downstream and what information and what's happening with customers. So you all talked through the first part of the webinar about the importance of bringing everybody in so they can see what's happening, because often it's kind of a little bit of an afterthought when they get to care, although you're supporting them all the way through. So it's important to have that relationship. You brought up something else that I want to have maybe Diane or Mary talk a little bit about. How do you get the executives to understand the importance of all of this? So it's one thing to say we want the silos, but that executive support is always so important. How do you make it come to life for them? Mary, do you want to give an example?
So I think it's just really important to have executive sponsorship in the work that we're doing, and to communicate often and effectively. So the art of storytelling and the benefits that this work will have for our customers, and continuously updating our executives so that they're bought into the plans that we're building.
Great. Any other examples?
Yeah, just to kind of touch with what Mary said, it's that communication piece, because the executive sponsorship for the things that you want to accomplish, whether it's policy change or system updates, is really critical. And it kind of goes to what I was saying before. You cannot be afraid to speak up about what's not working in order to get to the ultimate goal. So I just have to say what Mary said, the communication piece is so critical in order to get that sponsorship.
So I'll ask, we have a question from our audience again, and it fits right exactly into this executive question. And one of the things that I think many practitioners struggle with is, how do you define a financial return on investment on customer experience programs? And I'll start a little bit with the ability for us to start talking about the true financial measures in addition to metrics. So customer sat, net promoter score, effort score, all those things are metrics. But when we think about executives, they're thinking about return on investment and revenue and cost. So if we combine those two things, it's often a very stronger story. So I'll share that from my perspective. How about you ladies?
Yeah, I can talk to this, especially because we're going through a lot of changes this year as well. We needed to obviously put together a business plan to show why these technology enhancements would give you a return on investment. It goes to say, with the changing technology trends, what we're doing with self-service, what we're doing with AI, right? We're all getting bots and stuff. We're jumping on the bandwagon. Your ultimate goal is to prove to them that with these efficiencies that you're rolling out, how can you go ahead and then reduce payroll, because you're doing more from that standpoint. So that's a way to show a savings. And in addition to that, showing the improvement in your metrics, that by moving forward with the technology enhancements and going to more automation, I'm not going to lower my CSAT. I'm not going to lower my average handle time. These will actually improve and then save money on the back end from that payroll perspective. And that's one of the biggest ways that we measured the return on investment, right? So you either manually staff to complete those tasks that your technology cannot uphold, or you invest in the proper systems to then allow that payroll deduction to go down.
Great. Any other examples in our last couple of minutes?
It's a really, really good question, and I think that that's something that we're continuously looking at. I mean, for me, investing in AI and the technology and knowledge management should ultimately reduce the time to competency of our advocates and make them happier in their work. So reduce the churn and tenure, improve the tenure that we have. which ultimately will boost satisfaction. So there's lots of different ways that we look at the data. But for me, if we can reduce time to competency and take our customers to through happier journeys earlier, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. It's a good takeaway too to say that the ability to build a business case and think about the experience and how the behavior changes for a customer and how that impacts your organization is a competency. So for those of you, lessons learned, I wish I would have started a lot earlier telling that business case story so that I don't get the question later on, well, where's my return on investment for AI or for the knowledge management or any of the other things that we're doing. So Jasmine, we have had a wonderful conversation here. Thank you so much to Diane, Mary, and Hillary for joining us today and sharing their wonderful brains. I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's always great to have you moderate our webinars. Such a friendly voice. So great to have on board. And of course, Hillary, Diane, and Mary, thank you for sharing your insights. It was absolutely fantastic. I hope everyone listening enjoyed it. I know I did. It was tempting not to jump in and join the conversation. As mentioned, we will be sending you all the recordings of this webinar, should you wish to share it with your colleagues or listen back at some point. But yeah, I feel like wrapping up, I think it's safe to say that creating a roadmap for the future is at front of mind for all customer service and experience leaders. With such extensive evolution of the customer expectations, bringing in new tools and technologies will be essential as we get our customer service teams ready to deliver that amazing experience that customers now expect. But everything is changing all the time. So like our panelists have suggested, take some time out of your day-to-day to network, learn, and diagnose problems. If you are interested in an opportunity to sit down with these leaders in particular and get advice from them, we'll be discussing this and more at the 9th Annual Customer Service Summit in New York on October 23rd and 24th. You can check the chat box for a link to our website, but I'll also send it around with the recordings. So thank you again so much for joining the webinar, and thank you, ladies, for sharing such fantastic insights. We'll end it here.